Hey everybody, I'm Vinny from South Philly, and today I am chatting with Bill Staxx. Staxx, you are the man, and I can't wait to continue to watch, follow you, and support you in every which way possible. Thank you, Bill.
And all the time, a major organized crime bust. 23 people under arrest now accused of stealing guns and cash.
Today, police revealed 4 organized crime groups are wreaking havoc.
From aggravated robbery to kidnapping, burglary, and more. Let's take a look at this. New pictures from court documents in this case. These are a few of the people who have been charged, and investigators say the money, tens of thousands of dollars, is all stolen.
FBI, open up! Welcome to this episode of Chatting with Staxx. I'm your host, Bill Staxx, and today I got Vinny from South Philly. How much work you put in, and the persistence, and there's a lot that goes into it. So what do you think about Merlino having a podcast, and what were your thoughts when it first popped off and he was like on YouTube? What were your thoughts?
I think Joey addressed an issue that maybe nobody really thought would ever be addressed, which is these one-sided conversations by people that are informants or whatever. And I think he basically punched them in the nose, virtually. And so it's entertaining. I don't think that they really have a way to really respond to him. I think that I've noticed that not many people are going back at him, because what are they going to say? Everything he's saying is backed up by facts. So, Joey's doing it. He's the voice of people that aren't able to fight back, that feel like they're being abused and railroaded.
Yeah, there were some people on YouTube going at the informants, but Joey has a voice and people listen when he talks. So it's a little different perspective. So they have competition in town now,
Yeah, you may find more people doing that in the future, because I think that ignited a sort of an idea in people's mind that, what, he's coming out and saying this stuff, maybe I should too. Look, I mean, at the end of the day, like I tell everybody, most people fall in love with the beginning of mob movies, but they don't like to watch the end of them. But that's the reality of it, because you a lot of these people, and I'm not going to doubt the fact that they're repentant. Some people I'm sure are, some people I'm sure aren't. It's just, I still grapple with the fact when you say to it, is it better, or is it for the community, or is it worse? It's a funny thing to say, but you look at it and you say to yourself, when because organized crime exists in all different cultures. There's a lot of different cultures doing something. So I can't sit here and say what's good or what's bad. I just know that I definitely think that the path now with most Italian Americans growing up is like, they're looking just to work and do their thing, and that life, it's just a different time. This is a different society you're living in. These are just different times. And I don't even think you can get away with anything anymore, really. I mean, I think the government, if they want you, they'll get you, whether you're guilty or not. I think that there's no way to really earn a buck like you used to. If you think about it, growing up, I know that you could, gambling's always been there. It's always going to be there. But the casinos have taken that over. Horse races, the OTBs took that over.
The apps. All the apps.
So you don't even have to go to a casino. You're right. You can just on your phone.
Yeah.
They can clean you out on the phone, at the comfort of your own home. You can go broke, unfortunately. So there's really no way. I mean, I remember the old ladies used to even run numbers. You sit there and take numbers, I remember the old ladies with the cigarette hanging out of their mouth, taking numbers. You couldn't do that today. You're not going to make any kind of money doing that. So that was, to me, a harmless thing. People are gambling. Okay, as long as you're not, gambling your life away and your family's home. But like little things like that, you had a way to kind of, all cultures, again, African American, the Irish, everybody had their little racket. No big deal.
Yeah, it seems they focus on the Italians, though, right? There's organized crime in every aspect of society.
Yeah, and I think that, especially now with the way things are with drugs and how bad it is on the streets, I just think that there's probably not as much law enforcement as there was. I think there's a lot less feds. There's a lot less cops than there used to be. and they probably have to pick their poison. The Italians, it's a romantic thing to always go after them, but there's really
Headline
not enough.
grabbers, right? Headline grabbers.
Yeah, but you know what? This day and age, a lot of these guys, they're not getting jammed up for like like murders or things like that. I mean, what are you going to get them on? Gambling, maybe extortion. You're not. I don't think there's much meat left on the bone if you go after Italians these days. I think if you really want to do the community and the country at large a service, you go after the drugs.
The politicians that are supplying it.
Well, that's a whole other topic, but
Yeah.
and you got to keep things in check. But my thing is, and just going back to what I'm doing, like for a minute, as far as, and I love what you're doing, by the way, Bill. I congratulate you for your you have great setup.
Thank you.
I find that I like to use my creativity. Like I said, we got this now. We're in the developmental phase. The scripts are out. We send them to our contacts in LA, and I think there's enough to do out there that you shouldn't have to resort to crime. And I think that a lot of young bucks growing up now, they have a lot more options too. You can go on social media and do food reviews. There's so many things you could do. And I think you got to explore your creativity. I think if more people explored their creativity, figure out something they like, whether you make money or not, it would keep them out of trouble.
See, I was addicted to drugs and alcohol, and I got sober, and I started doing this. And I do this to show people that they can change. They don't have to be stuck in that cycle of addiction, and trying to show them that it's possible.
Congratulations, Bill. That's a tough thing, man.
Thank you.
Sad to say, and I know too many people that never were able to get out of that.
Yeah, what was the landscape like back then compared to now with the drugs in Philadelphia? It's changed quite a bit.
I think in the 80s here, it was more about people doing meth, coke, weed. I never grew up knowing anybody that shot up or did, any of the heroin. That was just, never heard of it. Then you start seeing, probably in the late 90s, early 2000s, then you start seeing things turn. And then we have a big problem over, famously.
Allegheny, Kensington.
There you go. So, you even, it's infamous throughout the country, probably the world, but K&A, Kensington and Allegheny is a intersection. And that area was predominantly Irish and Polish and German. Great people, great families. And then from what I understand, their own people started peddling drugs, and they had a gang there, and then whatever was the deal. And they were just massively putting out all this junk. You got to remember too, Philly was an industrial town. So you had factories literally everywhere. So they built all these row homes for those workers. And that's why they were built they were just wholesale, like places you could live, these row homes. So you could work
cookie cutter, right? They're all the same.
There's and then the richer people, the people more wealthy had better. I mean, there were some really wealthy people. I mean, Widener. If you look up Widener, he was unbelievably well. A lot of wealthy families because they were involved with the railroads. You got to remember, back in the day, the Republicans that ran the city and they had control of the railroad industry. It was the biggest moneymaker in the world. So there was a lot of wealth in Philly, a lot of wealth. And then they kind of just, after 1951, Democrats took over. They all kind of just left. So going back to my point with Kensington, Allegheny, but when the industry left, when they stopped making these products and the factories closed, people were out of work. And they're like, now what do you do? And a lot of people got depressed. A lot of people were on alcohol, drugs. And so you had all this workforce that didn't have jobs anymore, or, couldn't find a way to make ends meet. A lot of depression, picked up a lot of different habits. And K&A, for whatever reason, became like that, and Broad and Slender in South Philly. But Broad and Slender is nowhere near how bad K&A got. And you had people, unfortunately, listen, we did it to ourselves as far as people in the neighborhood were peddling crap to their neighbors, to their friends, and this is what happened.
I've been down there. I've interviewed people down there, and it was shocking to see some of the things down there.
It's traumatizing. I mean, it's sick. I wouldn't want anybody to see. I've seen, been around it plenty of times. Been, with work or whatever. I mean, your heart breaks. I don't know if you're a father, Bill, but I have 3 kids, man, and I'm just thinking, how do you go from these these cute little innocent little souls to eventually going down a path that leads to this. I mean, I know what it is because you start making a lot of bad maneuvers, a lot of
Yeah,
bad.
sometimes your kids aren't enough to keep you sober if you're stuck in that life cycle of addiction.
Yeah. No, and I don't think, and to me, it just shows you how scary and how addictive and how tremendous these drugs are that you're not even concerned about your own flesh and blood. That's the scary part of it. To me, it's like it's the devil inside of those little bags or inside that syringe. It's the devil. There's nothing else I can compare it to.
So when you were coming up, did you just start the screenwriting thing and getting into that, or were you doing that before?
No, so what triggered my interest in it was when I lived in LA and I seen that you can. Wow, I'm like, wow, if you can use your imagination, and if there's a formula. There's definitely you have to stay within the formula, and if you have some access and you're half decent, you might be able to actually do something. So that was interesting to me. And I like the creativity part because I think that a lot of people, whether you're an artist or whether you're a singer or an actor, you kind of have this nagging urge that you got to get it out of you. So that to me was an outlet. And then of course I've had distractions along the way. You know how it is. You got to work at this, whatever. But last year I kind of reconnected with an old buddy of mine, and he's a filmmaker in Philly. He's done like 5 different projects. So I'm like, you know what, man, I have this idea, and we used to play, and I know him for years, and we kicked around this idea, and I'm doing these skits, right? So I'm doing these stupid skits on Instagram.
Yeah, I've seen them. Yeah,
and
when the guys from New York come down, right?
Yeah, that was
Like,
well,
they're from Queens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those guys are great. Those guys, a big shout out. That's Maurizio. That's Frankie. That's Joe. There's Giuseppe. Those guys are great. And I actually met them because I got a phone call from a director, Larry Durr. Big shout out. He invited me to New York to be part of his pilot. And so I went up there, and that's how I met those guys. And so, he found me through social media. That was really cool, So, and I met those guys. We stayed in touch, and then we did a little skit. But doing those skits is what led for me to come up with the screenplay, and we banged it out. I mean, I wrote 93 pages. Usually 90 pages is the norm, more or less. It used to be like 120. Now it's about 90 pages. Each page is like a minute worth of screen time, for those that don't know. So a couple contacts in LA, a director named Michael Winnick and an editor named Robert Ferretti. And those guys are established guys. Robert Ferretti's done a ton of stuff. He worked with Mel Gibson. You name it, the Stallones. So, we sent it out to them. We'll see what happens. We're trying to raise the money ourselves and kind of keep that creative control. But you know what, Bill, it's fun to have that excitement knowing, who knows,
that your creation could come to life.
Yeah.
And from all the work you put in, it is exciting.
Yeah, and I start to realize, like, years ago I probably said, oh man, I can't do what those guys are doing. But anything's possible if you really are dedicated. If you're upset, you have to get obsessed over something. I finally realized that in my 40s. The way to success is you got to find something that you like and get obsessed, crazy about it, and just focus on that, and you'll be successful. There's no way you can't be.
So is this the first one you have?
Or it's not my first screenplay.
Have you sold screenplays before?
I've written a couple before this, but I never really put them out there. I kind of kept them for myself. And it was not until I met a guy named Neil Gumpel, and he's on TikTok. He's big on TikTok. He's also on Instagram, and I don't think he's on Facebook. But Neil is a guy that he was a screenwriter. I mean, he's worked with Oliver Stone. He's worked with, you name it. He's worked with top actors and producers and directors. And he was a ghostwriter for a lot of that too. Ghostwriter was like, you don't put your name on it, but you're going in, you're cleaning up somebody else's script. You're helping the studio kind of get this script going the way it should be, and you just get paid, and that's it. Your name never really gets put in the credits.
Yeah.
I don't know if I like that person because I want credit, but some people are okay with that too. But Neil and his assistant, Andrea, they read the one screenplay I wrote 15, 16 years ago, and they thought it was great. So I'm like, damn, you know what? I could write a lot better than that. And that was 15 years. So that to me was confirmation. I'm like, all right, you know what? Let's turn up the, let's turn this up. And that's then what came was the Boston Cheats Crew screenplay. So I'm pretty excited about it. And I you start to think, oh, I wonder who would play in it. But it's one step at a time, because making a movie is not easy.
No, definitely not. So is it a movie or like a TV series type thing?
Well, the way it's written now, it's a feature film. It could definitely be a series. There's no doubt about it, because it's got the type of elements that would make it very, very easily into a series, and it would be a good series. I don't think there's anything like it. I kind of make it. I try to make the connection with, if you remember Wise Guys from the '80s with Piscopo and Danny DeVito.
Yeah, yeah.
It's something like that, like these guys are mobsters, really, they're goofy, but again, it's got a ton of conflict, which every screenplay needs to have. It has a ton of conflict, and everything at the end just comes together nicely, and all problems are resolved. And there's just a lot of comedy throughout it. It's comedy that you'll identify with. If you grew up like I did, and we're in inner city, you can identify with the type of language that they're using. It's authentic. Like, I'm not a guy from the middle of Montana writing something like this. I grew up with these people, with these characters, so it's true.
Yeah, a lot of people, some people like that aren't even from the place. Did you know that Sylvester Stallone's not from Philly?
No, yeah, I knew that. Yeah, he did. They moved around a lot, unfortunately. Yeah,
Yeah, I was shocked when I heard that. I'm like, what?
Yeah, they spent a good deal of time here, though. And he's actually said it. I've seen a couple interviews where he said if he didn't spend the time he did in Philly, Rocky never would have been made. And I believe it, and I think that there's I think that his time he spent here also gave him some perspective too. And I think they lived in the Northeast. There's some people that I know that they actually hung out and grew up with, like Frank Stallone, for that period of time he was here. But if you notice, if you ever really watched Stallone, you'll see he's wearing the Eagles jersey. He's still very proud of the Philly background. So
yeah. So when you were in Balboa, what was your role? And
I was just an extra, but I had a few lines actually, with him. They made me sign the waivers at the end and the whole thing. But I forget, it's been so long. But I had, I have a picture, I have the autograph.
You remember the day going there?
I was just going to work, and I was, I said, you know what, let me go see, because they had shot another one when I was in grade school. They shot the one that was Rocky V, the one with Tommy Morrison.
Yeah.
And I was in grade school, and I tried to get down there. I didn't get a chance, because when you're little, you just want to see, you just want to see them, and I never got that chance when I was, at that age. So this time around, I went there, I was standing in the crowd, and literally this assistant pulled me out of the crowd and said, hey, you want to be a part of the scene? I'm like, sure. I guess because I look like, I must have looked like something that he wanted, but I don't know. So in neighborhood kid, I don't know. But I called out of work that day.
So how was it, like you guys were having a conversation? Like, do you remember
Yeah, so we were standing in front of it's called Claudio's. It's a Italian specialty shop, like imported cheese, all that stuff. And so we were outside of Claudio's, and I didn't even know what to say. I'm just like standing there, and he's like standing there. He was very quiet. And I was mentioning names, which I don't want to mention, but that because I knew that their stepfather was friendly with some of the guys from the neighborhood.